The National Gardening Bureau is celebrating 2002 as the year of the spinach. So here at our studio garden, we're going to plant a few rows in one of our raised beds. Now growing up, I was one of those weird kids that actually liked the taste of spinach. I used to like watching Popeye the Sailor on television, and I knew that whenever he pulled out the can of spinach and gobbled it down, that he'd get really strong, good things would happen, and he could defeat anything that came at him. Well, even if you don't like the taste of spinach, there's still lots of really good reasons to plant and grow and eat it. It's really high in nutrients. Spinach contains very high levels of vitamins A and C, lots of folic acid, iron, and carotenoids. So it's just loaded, really high levels of these nutrients that are really good for us. And if you grow it yourself in your garden and harvest it fresh, you'll get the highest nutrient levels before it's processed. Spinach is also very easy to grow. In fact, a lot of the cool season type vegetables are some of the easiest vegetables to grow in our gardens. You plant them in the cool part of the year. In the springtime, we're usually getting enough rain so you don't have to do much watering out in the garden. And then when the really hot weather of summer gets here, you're already finished. You've already harvested all you're going to, and so you can just walk away from it. Spinach is also so easy to plant and grow that you might consider letting your children plant a row in the garden or a little patch. Because if they plant the seeds and they tend the plants, they're probably going to be more likely to eat it once it's harvested. If you live in an urban area and you don't have a plot of ground to plant some spinach, you could have your children plant spinach in a large terracotta pot and grow that on a patio or perhaps a balcony or something like that. Either way, it'd be lots of fun. Well, the type of spinach we're going to plant is one called Bloomsdale, also known as Bloomsdale Long-Standing, and it's considered an heirloom variety, and that's because it's been around over 100 years, and it's still one of the top recommended spinaches, and a very good spinach to plant here in Oklahoma. It's a Savoy type spinach, and that means it has crinkly or crumpled or kind of bubbly leaves as opposed to the smooth leaves. It's also a very dark green plant, very tender, quick growing, and slow to bolt. Bolting refers to the flowering of a lot of these cool season type vegetables. The flower scapes come up and produce flowers, and happens so quick it's almost like it bolts up out of the foliage. That's why we call it bolting. But once the plants do start to flower, the taste of the greens really starts to go downhill. They start to taste a lot more bitter. Well, in order to have plenty of time to grow a good crop, we're going to sow our seeds at this time of the year. And in fact, mid-February through mid-March is an ideal time to plant spinach throughout Oklahoma. Now, if you wanted a really early crop of spinach, you could plant your seeds in November or December. And that's because spinach is very cold tolerant, and most of the plants will live through a lot of our winters here in Oklahoma, and you can have a really early crop. Well, you can see here that our soil is very rich in organic matter. Laura and the other ground people around here have done a good job amending this soil, and that's really good because spinach likes a highly fertile, loose, friable soil that's high in nutrients. Well, I'm just going to sow these in these little rows, and I'm going to try to drop a seed about every inch or so in these rows. And I was wondering if you knew that our neighbors to the south, the state of Texas, grows an incredible amount of spinach. In fact, half the world's supply of spinach is grown in Texas. And there is a small town about 100 miles from San Antonio called Crystal City that's actually considered the spinach capital of the world. And they have a statue of Popeye down there. Once we've got those seeds in place, we'll just come back and we're going to cover these with about a ½ inch of soil. Just kind of squeeze these rows in, tamp these down really good. And again, just going to cover that with about a ½ inch of soil, kind of crumbling up these little clods. Just firm it down a little bit, and then we'll water this in. And we shouldn't have to do too much watering here in the spring. We're getting good rainfall so far, and it shouldn't be too long before those spinach plants start to come up. You'll notice our rows here are about 12 inches apart, and once the plants do germinate, we'll come back a little bit later and we'll thin them until there's about 2 or 3 inches in between the plants, so they'll have lots of room to develop. Now, if you plant spinach in your garden year after year, it's a good idea to rotate your crops, as you should with all your vegetables, because if you plant spinach in the same spot year after year, you could develop a disease called white rust. So be sure and move those around in the garden. Pests that you might get on your spinach would be some caterpillars, but those are easy to control with a BT or a Bacillus thuringiensis type of pesticide. This is a biological pesticide that's very harmless to people. Sometimes you also may have some four-footed pests in your garden that'll want to nibble on your spinach. So what you could do is create a little wire barrier like we've got right here, and this is just made out of a strip of hardware cloth. We just cut the corners and bent those down, and we'll put this over our rows of spinach, kind of sink it in the ground here. That way we'll keep those rascally rabbits from coming in and nibbling on our spinach, because we don't want them to get really big muscles and get out of control in the garden. But I hope you plant some spinach this year, and better yet, I hope your children plant a little patch of spinach in your garden, and then you too can be strong to the finish, because you eat your spinach just like Papa.